Hey friends, welcome back to our unconventional homesteading season. And today we are talking about one of my personal favorite topics because it is my everyday reality, and that is homesteading in a ridiculously brutal, harsh, unforgiving climate.
Yes.
So you have heard me talk about slash complain about this in many other episodes, but today I have the pleasure of having someone who can commiserate with me on as a guest. So if you
Absolutely.
were listening last week, I have the amazing Sarah Allison back. She talked about multi-generational homesteading last episode, and now we're completely switching gears and we're talking about homesteading in adverse environments. I feel like that's the professional way to say it, but I
Right.
like to also call it homesteading in
Hostile.
the Arctic. And
Hostile.
hostile, brutal, all the words, all the adjectives. So, welcome back, Sarah. I'm
Hey.
excited to chat again.
Yes.
And we are, just in case you're watching YouTube, we are wearing the same clothes because this was like 30 seconds after we ended the other recording.
Right.
So, just so you know, full
Right.
transparency.
I do wear
But
more than one shirt.
not only, I know sometimes I wear more than one shirt.
Well,
You know,
sometimes.
we
Actually, you're right. Now that I said
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's just, I know sometimes when I'm on Instagram stories, I'm like, did I wear this yesterday in the story? Possibly. I'm gonna have to go change before people find out how I really operate.
Yeah.
So, yes. Okay, so you have a multi-generational homestead, but the other
Yeah.
part of your homestead story is, my earbud's falling out, is you live in Helena, Montana,
hmm
and are your altitude's like 4,600 feet? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yep. 4635. So we're
Okay,
outside of Helena
4635.
proper. Helena is about,
Okay.
Helena itself is about 400 feet below us, I think. I
Hmm.
don't quote me on that, but
So you're going up.
it's quite a bit
Okay.
it's quite a bit lower. We're west of Helena, and so we're just on the east side of the foothills of the Rockies. So
Okay.
the Continental
Okay.
Divide is about 20 minutes from our house. So not far.
Hmm. Yeah. And what zone are you in? What growing zone?
So we are technically in 3A, but we found over the last so my folks have lived with us for 3 years, and that's when we really started doing more of the gardening because my mom's the gardener, like we talked about last time. And so when she started
Mm-hmm.
doing all the research about zones and things like that, we got all kinds of stuff for zone 3, and they all died like right away.
Mm.
They all died.
Oh.
They were just
Oh.
like, oh, it's too hard. And so we kind of
Yeah.
figured that the wind drops our zone at least to 3B, but we treat it like it's 2A.
That's pretty low. Like you
Yeah.
can't go much lower than that. Like what is
No.
that? Well, what is lower than that? Like this the North Pole. Like I
Uh
don't know. Is there a zone one?
yeah.
What is
Uh
zone one?
Zone 1 is so zone the second the two zones are up through Canada and into the Yukon, but then you get up
Ah,
into the
okay.
I don't think you have to get all the way up to the Arctic Circle because you do have to actually be able to grow something to have it be a grow zone, I think. So it must
That's
be
true.
it
That's
must be
true.
just below the it must be just below the Arctic Circle. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's cold.
Yeah. But I mean, getting into the twos and the threes is pretty brutal. So
Yeah.
we're actually higher than you. We're 5,200 feet,
Oh, okay.
but we're zone 5B.
Oh, because
So it's
of
a little, and we have winds and we have
right.
cold, but for some reason, we're just south enough, I guess, that it's different.
Yeah, that might be, and it also might be that you have more water because you're on the prairie. Do you have more
Possibly.
water?
Yeah, the prairie. I mean, I feel like we're always in a drought, but it's still probably more water than what you're seeing where you're at, I'm guessing.
Highly probable.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but I was going to say that we sometimes, like, so I plant, like Memorial Day, we're planting the garden today, actually. So
Okay.
that's when I plant. And then we can get snow as early as like the first week of September. So that's
Yeah.
my summer season. But
hmm
then like with my fruit trees, I'm experimenting with those again. And I bought them, they're hardy to zone 3. So I usually go back a couple zones for stuff like the perennials and stuff,
Right.
even though my annuals can be zone 5. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. I guess maybe all zones aren't always as set in stone as we think.
I think that that's the case. I agree with you on that. I think that For me, I think that a lot of it is what's going to be in the greenhouse, what's got to be planted outside, what and you have to adapt. And I think that that's well, like we were joking about before, this isn't Ohio. It's
Yeah.
not England,
Yeah.
this green and pleasant land. The
Yes.
environment is seriously, sometimes I feel like it's trying to kill you. It's like a battle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yes.
now that we've got the big greenhouse, um we've got butternut squashes and acorn squashes and all sorts of stuff in there that we're not as concerned about. But
Hmm.
you have to do a lot more research in your varieties and
Yes.
adapting your varieties and what you're willing to invest in, with the idea that everything might die,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I made sure that we had plenty of food producing animals on the property before we started the garden, because I figured, like, at the very least we can be carnivores, and if
Yes.
we if we're saving money on growing our own meat, then we can buy vegetables or trade, barter for
Yeah.
vegetables for somebody who's got a better setup or something like that. Um but I think the one that I'm refusing to give up on, and I swear I am going to get produce one of these days, is the butternut squash, because I love butternut squash. I
Mm.
don't know why, it's
Yeah.
just my thing. I love it. And so I'm super excited that my dad built this greenhouse. We have a dugout greenhouse,
Okay.
so we actually
Yes.
excavated into the hill in the backyard. So
Okay.
um it's 4 feet from ground level in the back. And then it's got a roof
Okay.
like this on it. So it kind of looks like one of those Nordic A-frame kind of
Yep.
greenhouses. And then the
Yeah.
entrance is a little bit downhill, so it's not as much of a it's we don't have to duck to get in, but it's
Okay.
definitely submerged in the back and way below ground. So it's a lot warmer. So I'm hoping that I'll get the
Yes.
butternut squashes this year. They've died every
So, are
single
you
year.
planning? You're trying for the butternut squash. Are
I am.
you?
I'm going for it.
It's your goal. Super, number one goal in life. Butternut.
Yeah.
Um, are you doing like all your like? Do you still have an outdoor garden, or are you just like primarily focusing on things in the greenhouse year round?
Okay. So we do have some things that we grow outside, but we don't have a garden because it's rocks.
Okay.
It's all
It's
rocks.
rocks.
It's not,
Like there's no like dirt. You just throw some rocks to the side, but it's like
it's
rock.
still, yeah. I mean, the dirt is just ground up rocks.
It's not great.
No, it's like,
Yeah.
I say
Yeah.
that and it sounds so horrible, but we love where we live.
Yeah. Yeah. People, you can be
So
thankful anywhere. You really
I
can.
know it's so beautiful. It
Yeah.
is. The views out in the mountains and everything are it's just gorgeous. And
I bet.
it is pretty. Everything's beautiful in its own way, And so
Yes.
we just we do raised beds,
Okay.
and we've actually had to buy all our dirt, which just sounds funny,
Yeah.
but it's sterile.
No, but like you're not alone in that for sure. I mean,
Okay.
that is not a rare occurrence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's real common, at least up in this area, because
Okay.
we went to help harvest at actually the pastor of our church, and at his garden, and we were working on some things, and he said to my girls, he said, "Make sure when you pull that, you shake it off, because that's good dirt."
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. Save the dirt, man.
I'm so glad
Save
somebody else says that.
Yeah.
That's good dirt. Don't waste
Yeah.
that. Don't
Yeah.
don't you got to save the good dirt, because there's
Yes.
not a lot of good dirt. So,
I know for sure. Yeah.
so we've there's a couple really good garden stores down in Helena, and my dad will take his trailer down and pick up a, I can't remember how many yards his trailer will carry, but he takes it down and he gets a load, and then my mom has this blend that she's found that works with compost and um, a peat,
Mm,
and then the dirt that he brings in,
okay.
and so we've got four. I'm looking at them right now. I think they're 4 by 8 raised beds.
Okay.
And we actually took your blueprint of your guys' raised
Oh,
beds
awesome.
um,
Yeah, awesome.
because we were trying to figure it out. And Dad is not the gardener; he's the one that builds things for the gardener. And so
Sure.
he wanted a printout of what we were thinking. And so I used your guys's um,
Good. Good,
article of
good.
that, and he said man, those totally made sense, and we had to adapt it a little bit because he's not a welder, and and that kind of thing, but
Sure.
he did a really good job. We've got the galvanized all the way
Awesome.
around, and then
Yes.
we all dug them out, so we dug those into the hill as well,
Hmm.
because we're
Okay,
the
smart.
whole farm is probably like that.
Oh, so you have grade and you have rock and you have
Yes.
wind.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have all the things.
Yeah. We have
Okay.
all the
Yeah.
things. That is a very good
Yeah.
way to put that.
So, but I love. I mean, the raised beds are such a perfect option for that.
They
Like
are.
they really are. If whether you live in a swamp or you live in a you have bad soil or clay soil or sandy, like
Right.
raised beds can
If
cure a lot of evils.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
fixes everything. And then
Yeah.
the stuff that we dig out, we just put it back in the bottom half of the
Mm-hmm.
raised bed because you don't need it good soil
Sure.
all the way down. I mean, that's nobody could afford to do that. I mean, that'd just be so
No. No.
expensive. And so what we do is what we've dug out, then we pile all that back in about halfway, and then we fill it up with the good soil for whatever
Good
needs to
stuff.
go in there.
Yes. And then okay, so that's your out. That's outside, right?
That's
Or are you doing that same raised bed in the greenhouse?
a We will. This
You
year
will.
we're
Okay.
doing pots for
Nice.
everything. We have we have some big plastic pots. My mom's found that she has a lot of success with the cloth bag pots. Have you seen
Oh yeah.
those?
Yeah.
Uh,
I have.
okay,
Yes.
I hadn't until she found those, and they're fascinating to me. But
Yes.
that works really well. We have 5 and 10 gallon
Okay,
ones,
awesome.
and
That's a good
so
idea.
yeah.
Just in if you can't be permanent yet, that's a really good idea.
Right. Yeah. And that's what we had out in strategic locations, like where we had a little shed that we'd converted into a temporary greenhouse before this big one was built that has the actual hard plastic, the polycarbonate top that's going to withstand
Mhm.
the hail and that kind of
Yes.
thing. Yes. And
Mhm.
so, but we would have them. It was like we were stashing our pots, like, okay, well,
Yeah.
on this side of the shed, this is where we're going to camp out the tomatoes because then they won't get destroyed by the wind from this
Yes.
side. But then over on this
Yes.
side, this is where we're going to put the cucumbers. And pretty much everything died anyway, but we tried.
Yeah. So what does that look like when you're at zone 3/2 ish? Like, what can you grow? Like, let's say, maybe two answers to that. What can you grow without a greenhouse if someone's in a similar situation and doesn't have a greenhouse?
Hmm.
And what are you hoping to grow more of in the greenhouse?
Well, short answer, rhubarb.
Okay.
they,
Rhubarb. That's good.
ap-
It's great.
apparently, the running joke or just the common understanding in Montana is that if you're looking
Yeah.
for old homesteads, look, even if there's no buildings left, look for a rhubarb bush
Hmm.
and an apple tree.
Interesting.
And because there are certain types of apples that will grow
Yeah.
in this
Okay.
climate, and rhubarb. So apparently that's really true. It's just rhubarb, you know.
Yeah.
Um, for us outside, we had great success with potatoes in pots.
Mm. Yeah.
Great
Okay.
success. And honestly, I know everybody says you got to get seed potatoes, but we just bought, I
I
don't,
haven't been.
I, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I haven't been. I know. I'm like, I feel like I'm breaking a rule, but
I know.
it's way cheaper, and they've been, as long as they get organic, they're not sprayed with
Right.
that chemical.
Yeah.
They work great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They totally do.
Yeah.
They work absolutely great. And we grew good size, and so in pots we've grown potatoes and done really well with that, and I think anybody could. The only thing about that is we put the pots up against a chain link fence,
Hmm.
because our wind constantly comes from the west,
Okay.
and
Same.
because it's coming down right off the Rockies. So it's
Yeah.
just a prevailing west wind, just almost all the time. It'll switch to the north
Yeah.
in the winter. And then every once in a while, we have a super destructive south wind. Like, it's always seems like
Hmm.
right when the weather's changing, like we're
Yeah.
getting ready for spring or we're getting ready for summer. Um, I mean, just last week we had a wind come through that picked the slide from our play set, picked the slide up, spun it through the air like it was in a tornado. It hit the side of my dad's greenhouse, which, oh my goodness, I'm so glad nothing
Oh my
broke.
word.
And it flew
Yeah.
clear out into the cow pasture, which is from that spot. It was up over our house, across
Yeah.
the garden yard, and out into the cow pasture. We were just like, what
Yes.
in the world?
Yes. I'm sorry. I know this is horrible, but I feel better having someone else who understands what that is like.
We make
Because
a lot
it's
of
like,
Wizard of Oz jokes
seriously.
around here.
Yeah.
Like, did anybody
Yeah.
just see a
Like,
cranky lady on a bicycle
just,
fly by the window?
I know. It's like, so like, what's your wind speeds? Do you have a way to clock, or what do they say in your local area is your top?
So we can't get one of those weather stations with the wind monitors because the wind breaks them.
Because it breaks it. We've had that. We've had that happen. Yep.
So
So
we're
bad.
just like, so it's going to be windy.
Yeah.
But what it seems like is that whatever it's projecting, if we double that, we're probably good.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it'll say, and I'm sure our gusts aren't quite 120 miles an hour when they say that they're 60-mile-an-hour gusts,
Sure.
but I think we easily hit 80 or 90 for
Yeah.
the
Same.
not
Yeah.
sustained, of obviously not
Right.
sustained, but
Right. Yes.
we'll have a good 20, 30 miles an hour all day, just
Yeah.
all day long. And
Yeah.
you need a greenhouse.
Yes. That's what I've, yeah. That's why we built ours when we did, and it was an investment, but I'm like, this where we live, just this is just how it is. Like,
Right.
we just, I mean, I can grow probably more than you in the summer, but like, the summer is this short.
Right.
The season is this short.
Right.
And then there's 8 months out of the year that are just barren wasteland, and yeah, you got to do
Right.
something during those
Yeah.
times.
And
Yeah.
everything so for here, so you were saying that usually you plant your outdoor stuff Memorial Day. So
Mhm.
we don't plant anything really before Father's Day.
Really? So
Cuz
you're at least 2 weeks after
yeah.
me.
So the
Okay.
general rule of thumb that I heard when I moved here was Mother's Day. Don't plant anything. There's always a Mother's Day snow, which has been true. It
Yeah.
snows every year,
Yes.
either on or
Yep.
right before or after Mother's Day. So we
Yep.
got that, but then we would go kind of mid May and everything would die. We'd get a freeze, we'd get a dump, which is great. You want that water, because like you said, it seems like we're always in a drought, but it
Yeah.
just kills all the plants. And
Yeah.
so we when I was asking on a Montana gardening forum, like on Facebook, and there was some people asking about zones and uh, planting times and such. And there was a gal on there who said, I don't plant anything before Father's Day. And there were so many people who responded to her and said, yep, that's
Mm,
just
okay.
so outdoor. I think we'll probably still, the potatoes can handle it because it takes a
Sure.
while
Yeah.
for them to come up out of the ground, and the ambient temperature in general is pretty warm right now. But anything, well, when the lilac's in full bloom, it's okay to plant the beans.
Yeah.
And
So that is, isn't it interesting to watch the tough plants? You kind of like take your cues from them because they know.
because they know.
They
Yeah,
know.
our lilac
Yeah.
tree, man, that thing is my hero. We
I
had
love
a
lilacs.
plague. Did you guys get a plague of locusts like 2 years ago?
We did, and they didn't get our lilacs, but they killed all our ash trees.
They killed
Like,
everything.
ugh,
I mean, out here,
it was
I could
heartbreaking.
hear, I'm not even kidding, I could hear them chewing.
Oh, oh,
I know.
mm.
I had them.
Yeah.
It was awful. So, and they were just lined up end after end on this lilac tree and just stripped it. And we thought, man, they killed it.
Ugh,
That thing
yeah.
is back. Last year did not have any blooms on it. And maybe one had one bloom, but it was still green. And so we were thinking maybe this year it is just covered in blossoms. Lilacs are
They are so
tough.
amazing. They are amazing. I'm just like, how do you do it? And you
Yeah.
smell so good.
Yeah.
Like
It's
you're so dainty for the prairie. I
I
don't
know you're so
understand.
pretty. How do you survive?
Yeah.
But they
Nothing pretty survives.
yeah, nothing. No. Even if it started out pretty,
Yeah.
it's not pretty at the end.
It's not pretty when it's done. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but our lilac is just starting to open up the buds. So only just
Yeah.
barely. It's not remotely what I would call full bloom yet. So I think we've got at least another week and a half before it's full bloom. So
Which would put you pretty darn close to the Father's Day.
yeah,
Like, I mean, pretty close. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So when is your first average frost in the fall or summer, maybe? When does that come?
Well, people in Ohio would call it summer.
Yeah. Yeah. We call it
Yeah,
winter.
it's third winter here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it's in September. We'll easily get
Okay.
snow the first week.
Yeah. So
Um,
we're very similar.
but not a killing. The fragile plants are definitely out before we usually pull them the first week of September. I guess I've been here 5 years and it's been different every 5 years. The first year we were here, we had snow on the 8th, and
Yeah.
it didn't stop snowing until mid-May. It was like the craziest winter everybody was saying it was just insane. And then this last year, we had a beautiful fall. People were just walking around saying, this is crazy. We've never had a fall like this. It was lovely in September and it was crisp in October. And we even had a really nice first part of November. It was a full autumn season. But usually the
Yeah.
running joke is that spring and autumn are the best 2 weeks of the year. 1 week in spring, 1 week in autumn.
They're very, yeah. It usually it's like winter to summer because it goes from snow to just hot.
Yeah.
With very little. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we'll get a little
Or
bit of rain.
what I dislike. Yeah.
We'll get a little bit of rain.
Go ahead.
But what were you saying?
I'm just saying it makes me angry because like we'll get the snow or the killing frost the first week of September, and my garden will look like trash. But then it warms back up for another month, and I'm like, I want to be able to enjoy things, but they're all dead now.
I am so glad you said that. Because you're just like, I could have gotten an entire another harvest.
A whole nother month. Oh, yes.
But now I just have a bunch of beautiful weather to watch my dead garden in.
Yep. The dead, shriveled up things.
No. Yeah. And then they start to come back a little bit. And you're like, don't, little plant. Just stay dead. There's no reason to come back.
You're trying too hard. You're trying way too hard.
You're trying too hard, and it's just going to snow next week anyway. Just stop.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, so
I'm sure at this point people are going, "Why do these women live in these places?" But
there's something
so,
wrong.
but something wrong with. But truly, like I kind of have a sick fascination with it. I mean, I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know. I kind of like the challenge in a weird, twisted
You
way.
know,
Like I'm not. I don't want to move.
I
I
agree.
want to stay here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was gonna say, I actually really like the challenge. And honestly,
Yeah.
I kind of have a thing about um bugs and uh snakes or predators,
Hmm.
things like that.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
where we are, we do not even have ticks. Now, ticks are prevalent just down the hill. Not, I mean, there's lots of ticks in Montana, but on our property, we never have ticks, mainly because we don't even have sagebrush because
Mm.
ticks don't like rocks.
Pigs don't live on rocks. It's like,
They
you have enough
can't get a
rocks, you don't need
hold,
ticks.
you know, and the
They can't
wind
get a hold of the
blows them
rocks. Yeah.
away. But
You
we
can be
don't
the
have,
silver lining in anything if you try hard enough.
right? We don't have
Yeah.
ticks. We don't even have the rattlesnakes that are around,
Yeah.
you know, because there's no grasses really to hide in, and there's no uh, shrubs and those kind of things. So we don't run into the ticks or the mosquitoes because there's no water. We don't have the snakes, and there's dogs and all sorts of stuff around us, and so we don't run into the bears or the cougars or the y-
Yeah.
you know and so when you start talking, as it gets nicer and nicer as far as the environment for growing things, your encounter with nasties goes up
Yeah.
you
That's a
know
good point. Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
lived in Alabama for a while, and boy, you can grow just about anything down there, but there's also lots of scary things.
Yeah. Big bugs,
Big
I'm
bugs,
sure.
really
Yeah.
angry snakes,
Yeah.
alligators. No thank you.
We definitely don't have alligators.
We
That is not a concern
alligators are
whatsoever.
not a
Not a
concern.
concern.
I actually saw a picture of an alligator like on someone's door. Like it looked like it was trying to climb. And it had something to do with Montana. And it said, "This is why I live where the air hurts my face."
Ah, yes. There you go. There you go. Sums it all up.
Yep. Yeah. This is why I live here.
Oh my goodness.
But it's a challenge, but um it's not bad.
I agree.
It's and so I think that when we're talking about doing um doing more for your own family, growing your own food, or having a few animals here and there. Whether you're in a little postage stamp spot in town, or whether you've got 5 acres like us, or 60 like you, or a whole bunch, it's, I think that wherever you are, there's going to be challenges. And so if you wait for the right time, you're not going to ever get started.
Well said. Yeah.
It's just
There's no perfect anywhere
there is no
or
perfect
anytime.
anywhere. No.
No.
And
No.
so we kind of knew that it would be, we actually thought the winters would be rougher. Um
Hmm.
because my husband remembered when he was very young, he lived here, and the winters were a lot harder. And then I grew up in a town in north central Washington, where it lots of snow. It would just
Yeah.
dump feet and get pretty cold. It does get colder here than it did there. But and then he ended up moving, and he was living up in Alaska until he graduated from high school. So our ideas of winters, and then people say, "Oh, Montana's got such hard winters." Our idea was, "Oh, snow and nobody
Tons
can
of
leave
snow.
their
Yeah.
house." And it's not, it's not And I think in general, it's not gonna be as bad as you imagine it. It's
Yes.
you can make things work. And
Yep.
so when they say things like adverse conditions, like homesteading in adverse conditions or homesteading in where things are really tough, I think it's probably tough everywhere and it can be good everywhere,
Yeah.
you
It
know.
depends on how you look at it, I think, your perspective.
Yeah. And I mean, okay, so if I wanted to have an English rose tea garden and I was bound and determined that that is what I wanted, I would probably not be a happy person here because that's a bad idea to try to do that
Yeah.
here.
Might be a challenge.
But,
Yeah.
on the other hand, I'm still very serious about my butternut squash, so I won't give up.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yeah, picking your
you
battles.
pick your battles. I'll fight for butternut squashes, but I'm not going to fight for the roses.
Yeah.
I'll just,
I would be the same.
yeah,
I'll take the vegetables over the flowers any day.
yeah,
Sorry, flower
yeah,
lovers, but that's how we roll.
yeah,
That's how we roll. So,
yeah.
um, what is it like with animals? I mean, we talked about plants, but have you had any challenges with the animals in the higher altitudes or in these type of conditions?
So I have kind of worked on finding breeds that are tougher. Um, I'm I'm a livestock conservancy nerd, so
Oh, nice.
so I'm super into the endangered heritage livestock, especially the American
Yeah.
breeds. So that's just kind of a little tick I have, and so I really wanted to look into those kind of animals. Um, what ones were the ones that were fine no matter what, because there were animals that were fine no matter what. There were animals that still produced on their farms. They People did not have greenhouses. They didn't
Yeah.
have cozy areas for their chickens. Like those chickens just got in the slapdash shed with the cow and hoped they didn't freeze. So what are
Yeah.
these animals that we had in our country that produced and survived and thrived for their families, and why aren't we utilizing that? So for me, I this kind of was an opportunity for me to exercise that. you know
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so I mean there's a lot around that. A lot of people have your jerseys and your guernseys and your brown swiss and different things like that, but that's a lot of hay and a lot of feed. And I wanted to find something. If there was something, I wanted to find something that would do well on scrub. And
Mm,
what's a good one? And we settled on the American milking Devon.
okay, that's awesome.
So yeah, we just this last year we were able to pick one up, and there's a farm in South Dakota, and they had a group, and that was something that I learned the hard way with chickens. I'm really glad I didn't have to learn it the hard way with a cow because that's a much more significant investment.
Yes.
So definitely, if you're, I guess I would say my advice on that is if you're just starting out and you've got adverse conditions, then you want to start your experiment with the less expensive animals.
That's
You
good
know,
advice.
waste is awful anyway. We don't like to lose our animals, whether they're guinea pigs or chickens or bunnies or cows. But, you know, $200 will get you another flock of chickens.
Hmm.
It But when you lose a cow, you might need to wait a couple years to save up
Yeah.
to be able to invest again. And so we chose the American milking Devon, but I guess if I backtrack a little bit, we when we moved out from Washington, um we had we had Icelandic chickens, which are tough.
Yes.
Man,
Yes, they
they
are.
are so tough, but they were so feral that
I had the same exact problem. Same exact
they
problem.
were
Yeah.
everywhere and
Yeah.
all in the back pasture. We have fox dens in culverts down on our drive and out in a ravine behind our house. And they were just everywhere. And I loved them. They were getting all the way through winter with no frostbite. They were producing
Yeah.
eggs. I mean, they're not super active layers all the time, but they were just getting picked off. And I
Yep.
couldn't get them back into the coop. And then the more eagles and hawks that tell their friends that there's a bunch of birds in the back pasture, then more come.
Yeah.
So we decided that we were going to go with a breed that would be more, would still stay in the big pasture area. You know, they're not literally cooped up, but they're not going to be the big fence jumpers and go roaming into the neighbor's dog yard
Yes.
and then
Yes.
cause it. Yeah. So
Yep.
we ended up going with the American Dominique chicken.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of looks a little bit like a barred rock, but they're not quite as
They do.
stripy. They kind of have that cuckoo
Yep.
pattern, and they worked really well. I was kind of surprised because everything's brown here, but the black and white was a really good camo. We have lost
Interesting.
way less birds to aerial predators,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
which was funny because we kept a few of our older Icelandics when we sold the flock because I liked them and I didn't want to sell my old birds to someone and then just have them
Hmm.
die at their house, you know? And so
Yeah.
I kept a couple and it was funny because they're all, a variety, but they were the ones you could see out in the pasture. You couldn't really see the Dominiques because of
Okay.
that camo.
Yeah.
So
Huh.
when you're working with something where, okay, we have pallet tents up in the pasture because there are no bushes for them to run underneath. There's no tall grass even for them to hide in. When you're looking at your environment, you have to say, okay, um, how am I going to facilitate my animals' survival? They can't get from the cow shed where they could hide to the coop where they could hide. They couldn't get that far.
Mm.
So we have to
Yeah.
set something up because normally they'd run under a bush and the hawk couldn't get them, but there's no bushes. It's
Yeah.
rocks. So we have some pallet tents set up. And the Dominiques work really well. They've wintered really well here, but we got the flock that we got at the beginning, we got from a really well-known breeder in Washington. Excuse me, because with the Dominiques, apparently there was a lot of focus on show. And so they
Ah,
used to
yes.
be apparently a really hardy homestead bird. And so there's been kind of a movement to get them, while still
Hmm.
keeping their standard, get them back to the toughness. So we went with this um, man named Emmett Wild. He's in Washington State and he's excellent. So I would recommend him if I can do that on your show.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely.
he's fabulous. He knows what he's doing and he has great support. If you want to get into the endangered livestock, he's got the Dominiques. So he brought over some and we picked him up and we brought him here. And they all but five of them died in a week.
Oh. Oh.
Yep. And they just went into shock. It was
Oh my
horrible. And
word.
they were beautiful birds. And these weren't like delicate. He's
Yeah.
very much into the traditional style and so he didn't sell us bad birds, at all.
Sure.
But we basically all but five of them died. And
And was it just the harshness of
yeah,
your climate? It was that much
it
different,
was that
even though they
different.
were bred to be tougher.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
just
it
devastating.
was it was absolutely horrible. The girls and I were both in tears. We were all in tears,
Yeah.
and so, but the thing is that I said, listen, we know that these birds are good and we've got five. So if these five make it through the winter, we're going to have an awesome flock because those
Yes.
are going to be the eggs we get in the spring. Then we can hatch out and they're going to be used to being here. And we still have two of the hens that we got 4 years ago from him
Oh,
that
wow.
survived that first winter. We
Okay.
still have
Yeah.
two of the old biddies and we've got a great flock.
Yep.
and it's maintaining well. And so you have to not just look at the breeds, I think, but also you have to look at where they came from. We tried to get some eggs from a gal and she shipped them to us, and it was so sad. They all developed. We had a really good broody hen, and she
Mm.
had a amazing hatch rate, and so we put them under her, and they all developed, but they couldn't hatch.
Oh,
It was so sad. And
that's devastating.
it was
Yeah.
because they came from a really humid place.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so when I went back in, and I was thinking, there were two of them hatched and they weren't very healthy. They didn't do very well. But I
Yeah.
went in to look at the eggs, and that inside bit, it felt like a plastic picnic table cloth
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
because we're so dry.
So dry.
And
Yes.
so some things you learn the hard way, and it's awful, but not like chickens are totally expendable. But like I said, it's less of a recovery time to be able to realize, okay, well, I can't get eggs from Kentucky. I could send eggs to Kentucky and they do just fine,
Yes.
but I
Yes.
can't get eggs from Kentucky. And if I'm going to get, like, we thought we were fine getting the birds. It was September. We just had
Yeah. You would
a,
think. Oh
yeah,
man.
we just got a cold
Yeah.
snap. And they
Yeah.
just, I mean, seriously, they were dropping,
Mm.
and it was so sad. But now we've got a great flock. So
Yeah.
all that to say, I guess is the roundabout way to say it, is that if you're in an environment where it seems like things would be hard, um, make sure that you're getting something that's hardy already, because it still might have a hard time.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get one of those boutique style birds.
Yeah.
We would have
Yep.
all that. I buy a new flock every year.
For sure. And I think that has been such a hard lesson for me because I'm like that. I'm just going to dig in and make this happen with so many things in my life. But like with the varieties and with plants and animals on the homestead, that does not work when you live in a harsh climate.
No,
Like, like with fruit trees, I just recorded an episode with a gentleman on hardy fruit trees, and I had tried to go get the ones from Lowe's and Home Depot because
right,
they were being sold in my area, and I'm
right,
like, I'll make it work. I'll just willpower my way through
right.
this.
It's not in our
No,
control.
it does not work.
Mm-mm.
You cannot fight nature.
No,
So
no, it is
yeah,
not. It's not
yeah,
in our control. And so
nope,
I think that in working with, it probably sounds kind of woo woo, but but God made everything to work together. It should
yeah,
work. And
yeah,
so we very much believe that we're stewards of what God gave us. And so we do have dominion, though that has a negative connotation to it. With that is the responsibility of facilitating that working together. So because, like the guy who sold us the cow, he said, because they have horns, the milking Devons have,
hmm,
it's not like
yeah,
long
yeah,
horns, but they've got some significant haymakers,
yeah,
we call them. But he said, she's not smart and she's not going to get smarter.
yep, yep, yep,
You got to be smarter for her.
yes,
And I thought, yeah, I laughed too. And then I thought, but that's really true. The animals, they're not going to get smarter. I mean, I can train her to a routine so that she's standing at the stanchion when it's morning and I'm coming out with grain, but
yeah,
that's just training a routine. She's not smarter. And
yeah,
so I need to make sure that I'm prepared to take care of her before I jump in.
yes,
And
yes,
honestly, and sometimes you're going to make mistakes. I really, truly, I'd had chickens for years. I was not a chicken rookie at all. And I totally thought we were fine. And
I would have thought you were
we
fine.
weren't
Like
fine.
I would have thought you were fine. That's yeah.
And
Ugh.
so there's going to be those times and you can't quit,
Nope.
and it's just, but the Dominiques worked really well and the American milking Devons work great, especially in this last year where hay was off the hook up here.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
we just got grass cuttings from a field. A guy mows a bunch of people's fields and then bales it up. No alfalfa, no grain supplements, no nothing. It was just scrub grass.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
mean, junk. Nobody would want it for that. And she
Yeah.
thrived. We had a beautiful little bull calf about a month ago, and yeah, she came bred and just thrived all through the winter, all through the snow, all on scrub grass and a little bit of mineral supplements in the wintertime. So
Yeah.
you got to find the animals that can handle it, because they can't go
Yep.
inside like we can go inside. We bundle
Yes.
up, get the stuff done, and then we come inside and drink coffee all winter.
Yeah.
They
They
can't
don't
do
have to
that.
have the hair and the hardiness. Yeah. No, they, yeah.
So you've got to
So
be able to do
fascinating.
that.
Mm.
So I I don't know. I think that I think anything's adverse if you're not prepared.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Okay. So speaking of the rocky soil, I mean, I know to a certain extent there's not much you can do when you have big boulders and all that, but have you been able to improve any of it at any part of your property at all? Because Joel Salatin talks about rocks, but I don't know if his rocks are like
I
your
don't think,
rocks. So,
well,
I mean, just curious.
when you think about the fact that the mountains by which we live are named the Rocky Mountains,
I mean, you have a point.
I mean, I'm not going to say, and I would never even presume to say that Joel Salatin is wrong.
Sure,
He is
sure,
not
yes,
wrong. Guarantee.
yep,
If I think he's wrong, it's just because I haven't learned something yet.
yep,
you know.
yep,
So, so far, we haven't seen the results of trying to improve our
sure,
soil. I'll send you a picture of it because it's pretty, honestly, you have to laugh or you just cry.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when that big wind I was telling you about and it flew it was like a tornado coming through the property.
Yeah.
I had worked so carefully every time we mucked out the cow shed. Every time we
Mm,
would we'd take it out in the wheelbarrows and we'd get it in a row and we'd let the chickens scratch it down. And then we moved over a little bit and then we moved up a little bit. And we got this whole thing in the pasture because once we get the back fencing in where the cows will be permanently, we've got them packed in a little acre, about
mm,
an acre, just making deposits, as it were.
yep,
So because
yep,
I do want to put some fruit trees in there. And so
yeah.
we're just trying to pack it in and then they'll move to the bigger area. But all of that, all of it, Jill, is up against the fence.
Yeah. Yep. I know what that looks
All
like.
of,
Yeah,
all of it.
yeah,
It's like it looks like we banked a house like old fashioned homestead
yeah,
style for the wintertime. It looks
yep,
like we banked our fence. It's just full, full
yeah,
of straw all the way down. All of it's gone. I mean, I
yep.
guess it's nice. It's not, it stopped.
It
So it
stopped.
didn't
Yeah,
blow so far away. I can't get it back and try again. But
yeah.
yeah, it's packed. And because of that, it shorted out the electric fence. So we've got to pull
Of
because
course.
it's buried. I mean, it looks like a
Yeah,
snowbank made out of straw. And
yeah.
so, but on the upside, nothing can get through there because it's all packed. So,
True.
I guess we're fine. You got to look on
Well,
the
and I
bright
think
side.
yeah, and I mean, soil changing and building takes a long
It
time.
does.
Like I think Joel Salatin, when he talks about it, he was on his property for decades, I
Right.
think, or his parents were doing it, and he was carrying that on. So you've
Right.
been there what, 3 years?
5.
3 years, right?
Yeah, we've been here
Or
5.
5 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not that long in the
No.
grand scheme.
It
So
really
I, you
isn't.
know, as you're consistent, you might see more.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I think what we're probably going to do is I might dig down a little bit. I mean, it's still going to be
hmm
rocks. But
yeah,
um if I dig down a little bit and then shore up in rows, like I think I was too grandiose.
yes,
Like I was wanting to shore up all of it. And I
mm,
think that was too much to start with because it
sure,
all just blew into the fence. But if we take it and we dig down a little bit so that the manure and the straw are lower a little bit than
hmm
ground level,
that's a good idea.
and then
Yes,
when we put in the
yes,
fruit trees, we'll mix it in and that kind of thing. And then the trees themselves will help with the wind. I don't know.
that's a good idea.
But yeah.
Have you? I just randomly you said fruit trees. Have you found St. Lawrence Nursery yet for fruit trees?
No, there is a garden center here that is
Oh,
they are a test garden, and I want to say
that is
for
fabulous.
it's the University of Montana.
Okay.
No, I'm going to say it's Montana State, but the garden's called Tizer Gardens, and
Yeah.
they're farther south than we are, but
Okay.
they have varieties that they test in places like
Nice.
ours. And so we've gotten some honeyberries from them. Have you heard about honeyberries?
I have not heard about them.
Oh,
No.
I will get back to honeyberries because they're amazing.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I'm planning on getting some from Tizer. And
Okay.
we're going to try to espalier
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that we don't end up with the height to catch the wind.
Yes. Smart.
So
Yep.
that's our thought process there, because in theory, apples, plums plums, they grow really well here. And so if
Yeah.
we can get it so that we can mitigate the effect of the wind, then I think we'll be on a good track. But in an environment like this, it's finding the varieties that will espalier well, and it's kind of fun because I started looking into it, and they have stuff that they still have apples that are the same kinds that like, my girls have read about in their Louisa
Oh,
May
that's awesome.
Alcott books, and
Yep.
stuff like that. There's one, it's called The Northern Spy,
Oh,
and
cool.
it is super hardy in the super cold. And so I kind of want to
Yep.
try those too. So I,
Yes.
those we'd have to order. So I don't know. But it's
I love that you
St. Lawrence.
oh, St. Lawrence. Well, I love that you have a local test garden because that's like the best of all the worlds.
Yeah.
But we had two local garden stores here that were one was like a high altitude garden
Nice.
specialty, and they closed down, and I was just heartbroken.
Yeah, that would make
But
me
St.
cry for
Lawrence
3
is
days.
it was like, where did you go? I needed you so bad. St. Lawrence, I think they're based out of New York State, but they have I
Oh,
think they have pears, peaches, plums, and apples that are for like zone 2, 3.
right.
Like they are
It
hardy. And so
gets nasty out
I
there.
ordered a bunch of different ones from them this year, and I mean they're tiny, right?
Right.
They're 2 feet maybe, but I planted them and they're leafing out and they handle the snow and they're just trucking along. So I'm feeling
Oh.
hopeful. Feeling hopeful.
And they
Yeah.
would have, because,
So,
now I can't remember. The name of the book is called Understood Betsy.
okay.
It's not a Louisa May Alcott book. And I can't remember the
Okay.
author off the top of my head. But there's
Yeah.
a farm in it's in, I want to say, Vermont. And so is where it's set. And they talk about the northern spies.
So cool.
So
I love stuff like that.
yeah. And so I kind of
Yeah,
want to try it, and
for sure.
but I'll look into that because it gets nasty out there. We don't get the ice like they do
For
out
sure.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really their website was well, they had excellent instructions. Like they sent me a whole booklet on how to plant them just the right way and to be real how to just get it just right. And their website was super informative.
Oh,
But you
okay.
can tell they're like they know harsh. They understand harsh.
Oh, they do.
So
Like,
like
people talk
you're my
about
people.
yes, you're my
Yeah.
people. Exactly. People talk about, "Oh, it's so cold in Montana," or, "It's so hard in Montana," or, "Oh, the wind," and, "Oh, the" and I'm just I look at those folks up in, like, Maine. Oh
Yeah.
my
Yes.
word. I couldn't.
Yes.
I couldn't.
That's a whole nother
That's
level.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole I am not nearly as hardcore as I wish I was.
Yes. At least we have the I always say it's such a cliche. We have the dry cold at least.
Right?
We don't have the wet, icy, like sink into your bones
Yeah.
cold.
But you know what? That matters
Yeah.
because
It does.
when we came over from Western Washington, I was cold all the time and my bones would ache and I had a terrible time. And then you get over here and it's 30 below, 20 below.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's crazy cold. But when you come inside, you're warm again.
Yes. You're warm. Yep.
You're warm again. You
Yes.
don't just stay
It's
cold
different.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is might be the record for the longest interview
Ah!
so far, but it's been so good. But so I'm just gonna I'm just gonna ask one more question because I don't want to go over our time too much and people are like, what is happening? Um, have you noticed plants growing slower at all with altitude? I mean, other than like you have the late snows and the early frost,
Right.
but like beyond that challenge, is there slower progress? Do you think or not?
Um, I can say that I've noticed our plants are smaller. Like our
Okay.
peas, they get going and they look all healthy, but they're this bunch of
Yeah.
pods and stuff, but not really climbing and expanding. But I can't say for sure that that's from altitude. It also might just be
Yeah.
the combination of the
The combi
wind and the dry and so I can't say necessarily that it would be for sure altitude, but
Okay.
I know it affects the altitude just affects everything. And at 46, we shouldn't be high altitude. When you look
Well,
it
and
up in
that's
the books
true.
and
You're
stuff like
yeah.
that, but my
Yeah.
cooking, I have to change everything.
Do
Yeah,
you?
I change everything. I
Okay.
add the stuff, the add some extra flour when I'm baking, or I have to adjust the temperature or um, the length
Mm,
of time for cooking, even meat. I got to add like 10 minutes per pound. Yeah, or
interesting.
it does not
Okay.
cook through. So I wouldn't be surprised
Yeah.
if that
Some funky stuff. Yeah.
if altitude does affect the time, and then you've got the double whammy there. It's not growing as fast, but you also don't have as long to grow it.
Yeah.
Again, you have to have a greenhouse.
Yes. The greenhouse is yeah is important for sure.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, do you have any a final takeaway maybe for folks who are listening to this and maybe they know they're moving into a place like where you and I live, or they're thinking about it because they know the land prices are better.
Right. There
Any
is
words of
that.
advice for someone who might be a little timid or a little hesitant?
um I think that if I was going to say anything is if you think that you really believe that where you are is where God wants you to be, it'll work.
Yeah.
It's not always a green and pleasant land. It's not always a high altitude, rocky mountain, lots of wind either. And it can be
Yeah.
anything in between. There's going to be things that are great and there's going to be things that are hard wherever you are. And so if you go in prepared with the fact that regardless, if you want to farm or you want to homestead your little spot, it's going to take work no matter where you are. Whether or not you have all the dirt in the world or you have to buy your dirt, well, you have all the dirt in the world and all the water in the world, you probably have mold or some kind of rot you have to deal with. Whereas up here, it might take, it's really hard to get enough water, but we don't rot out. There's going to
Yeah.
be goods and bads
Yeah.
no matter where you are. So if you feel like you are in the right place, then you can educate yourself, because there's nothing new under the sun, right? We're not the
Yeah.
first homesteaders in the Rocky Mountains.
Amen.
We're certainly not going to be the last. There's a wealth of knowledge that we can get. And the fact that they have things like this, my mom was actually just talking about it the other day. She said it's so great, that there's these podcasts and you can thumb through it and be looking and be like, well, I'm
Yes.
homesteading in Kentucky and I need to worry about cottonmouth snakes. I don't need to worry about grizzly bears. So I'm not going to listen to the Montana podcast, but oh, look, and you can get specific information and people with just wealth of information that can help you. And you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to just guess. I mean, I think of my great grandparents that moved out from Nebraska and they were just guessing, this is what
Yeah.
worked in Nebraska. And we had a storm shelter, like a tornado shelter built into a little rounded hill area. But I mean, Okanagan never gets tornadoes. They came from Nebraska though. So you better have a storm
So that's
shelter,
what you do.
so everybody's got a thing. And we don't have to guess and wonder. We can find out from experts or just other people in your area. So
yeah, the knowledge base is a lot different. I mean, we talk about
it is.
And I've said this before. Oh, we've lost the knowledge, we lost skills, which is true. There is truth to that. But there is also, thank you to the internet, which has a lot of bad things, but also some good things.
Right.
We have the ability to pass information around a lot faster than our ancestors did.
Right.
So
and we can have a tendency to get lazy about that too, because if I can't get the information like right now, then it's too hard.
Yes.
But the fact is we can get that information and we can do that research and we can slow down and get our hands in the dirt or in the rocks, as it were.
In the rocks.
And grow things and live that old-fashioned life that really is so good no matter where you are.
Yeah. So well said. So much wisdom. Thank you, Sarah. This has been absolutely fantastic.
It's been a great afternoon.
Such a great afternoon. That's good. But, well, I won't keep you because I know you probably have things to do. But thank you so much. Like, if there's anything I can do to return the favor, I just really appreciate your time and your knowledge and being so willing to share.
Yeah.
So I think people are really going to get a lot out
of
it.
Oh, good. I hope they can. I don't. When you're in the middle of it, you don't really think that your own experience is anything in particular, but then you think about it and other people might be going through the same thing, and it's nice to be able to help if you can.
Absolutely. No, for sure. I think people are going to really appreciate it.
So. Yay. Well, I'm happy to help you out. Alrighty. You're my favorite blogger.
Oh,
you are.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for reading and following along.
We totally do all the time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate the support. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, and we will be in touch at some point, I'm
sure.
sure.
So, sure.
See you around the big old internet.
But, yeah, right?
Yeah. Good to have some commiserating.
Oh, yeah.
This just helps. No, you're not alone.
Yes, it's so important to know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. So. All right. Well, you take care.
All right. You too. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.